My name is Michael Chave, and I am a technical specialist here at ATG USA. Today we are going to talk about a free tool from the CTC products. It is out of the BIM Manager Suite. We're going to talk about model cleanup as a whole. And we're going to talk about Project Cleaner. We're going to go through a thorough introduction on the tool so you can gather an idea on how it can work for you. Let's talk about what the tool is all about. Through the life cycle of a project, many of us have to go through a general cleanup process in Revit. There's a lot of time-consuming tasks, deleting views, cleaning up working schedules, imported components, the list just goes on and on. Instead of doing these tasks manually by hand, this tool offers a way to automate this process. When we are working inside of Revit, we should be taking steps to make sure our models are kept clean. This is true when we are sending models out and when we are receiving models out of house as well. This is an important step, but a lot of us don't take the time or have the time, especially when you have to do this all manually. Our models start to become larger and start to have problems. Today we are going to cover how you can speed up the task of cleaning your project with the Project Cleaner, which is a free tool from the CTC tools in the BIM Manager Suite. We will be starting out with a quick explanation on how your computer processes information. First, we're going to talk about learning objectives. You're going to learn about file sizes, organizing and cleaning your project, reduce incoming and outgoing file sizes, change the time you spend on repetitive tasks, and purge unused content. And at the end, we will allow for some questions if you guys have any throughout the project process. So let's talk about file sizes in terms of bytes. A byte is a unit of digital information that most commonly consists of 8 bits. Historically, a byte was the number of bits used to encode a single character of text in a computer. For this reason, it is the smallest addressable unit of memory in many architectures, computer architectures. Now that we have bytes of information let's go over memory sizes. 1 byte equals 8 bits. 1 kilobyte equals 1024 bytes. 1 megabyte equals 1024 kilobytes. 1 gigabyte equals 1024 megabytes. And 1 terabyte equals 1024 gigabytes. In relation to bits of code, this is a language our desktop uses to communicate information. A computer works importing information, for example, typing on the computer, moving your mouse, downloading a file. Your CPU or central processing unit will then leverage your RAM for a set-by-set instruction on what to do. Our CPU receives the instruction. It will then process the information and send it back to the RAM, your random access memory, for output onto our screen, which we see every day. All of this comes full circle when thinking about how much information needs to be pulled from one location and what the file size of that location is. Having a larger file size requires better hardware to process that information. A good place to start is looking at your template file and keeping an eye on the file size throughout the life cycle of the project. If you see your file grow rapidly in size, you might want to leverage the Project Cleaner to do a lightweight cleanup or some of CTC tools in the data suite. That will give you a more analytical breakdown of your model. For now, we are going to use the Project Cleaner and showing you and referencing the file size itself. And of course, I don't believe death by PowerPoint. So now we're going to go into Revit and talk about the Project Cleaner itself. So in here, you have the ribbon. You have the CTC tools here. And as you can tell, there's a couple different project suites here in terms of suites. Right now, we're going to be going over the Manager Suite. These are blue items here. And then as you can tell within many of the other suites as well, you have the lighter items. These are the free tools that CTC has within the suites. Again, they are completely free. You can download a 14-day trial and get access to all the darker icons. Or after the 14 days expires, you still have access to the free tools, which is the Project Cleaner, which we are going to be going over today. So we're going to go over workflow number 1, general project cleanup. This is a lightweight cleanup on your project. Usually we'd have to go through the mundane task of us going through our project browser and selecting things that we do not need anymore in terms of views, levels, 3D views, elevations, going down through sections, all these random sections that we have here as well, going through and actually deleting them by hand. The long and tedious task and time-consuming task of going around and deleting all of your working views. Here in the project cleaner, I'm going to dock this back up here. Once you've selected the project cleaner, and it's going to open up on my second screen here. Here we go. Now in the project cleaner, I've selected a couple of options here. Right here, we're going to have on sheets or used by type. And this allows me to actually see what views are not placed on sheets. Now you might not want to immediately delete the views that aren't on sheets because they might be ready to be put on a sheet, but some of these other repeat views in terms of going in and let's see sections, right? Some of these repeat views, repeat sections, you might want to be able to delete. How many of us listening here have gone in a project and seen hundreds of sections and just labeled 1 to like 100, 1 to 250? You just see tons and tons and tons of sections. In most cases, these can be cleaned up. And if you're working in a project with other people, it's in your best interest to let everyone know that you're going to go in and do a thorough cleaning of the project. And hey, you guys should probably name your sections. I'm going to go in here and delete these sections. You can also go in here and delete renderings. And to simply delete any items that you want in here, you're going to select them. You could select all if you wanted to, but we're going to go in here and just select ones that we actually need to have selected in terms of what we're not going to use in the project anymore. We're going to go in, select these sections. We know they're not used on a sheet, right? So you can come in here, delete what you need to do instead of going through the mundane task of looking, finding out if they're actually placed on a sheet. This allows for a simple, easy process of figuring out what was placed on a sheet, where it is, and how can I delete it. The great thing about this is if you are doing this task on a daily basis or on a weekly basis, you can save your selection here. So if you know that you're going to have 1 through 100 and you did that simple task before and you save the selection, it's going to come in here, and once you load the selection that you've saved, it's going to automatically select the items that you want to delete. Let's say schedules, right? You don't know if schedules are actually placed on a sheet. You can come in here and see a body count, row count of what actually is in the schedule area. If it has 0, it's probably able to be deleted. Let's go up to renderings. You can go in here and go to renderings as well. So let's talk about renderings as a whole. I want to get rid of all the renderings that are saved in the project. Reason being is you would want to, in best interest, not having it saved within Revit because it's then allocating the data within Revit. You want to export the image out, save it as, and then link it back in. That way, Revit's referencing the image rather than actually having the rendering in here. So all of these I would not want to have in here. I would immediately want to delete these as well. Go in here and delete drafting views. And that is a workflow, right? So we'd go in here instead of doing the more time-consuming task of going through, looking through our project browser. We now have in one interface, it's actually located ones that are not placed on a sheet. And you can come in here and go through and figure out which ones you actually need, which ones you don't need, and delete them. You can also go over here to images and delete any of the images that you need to have deleted, imports, links, if you have links that you don't want to have in here as well. And that is just a general project cleanup. That's what this offers you. Now let's talk about the second workflow. If you're sending a model out for coordination, or maybe receiving a model as well from outside, you would want to do this too. I would do a thorough deep cleaning though in terms of actually receiving a model. I'm actually going to show you guys a file size comparison on what I would receive if this was an architectural model. I'm a structural firm and I'm receiving this model. I would want to strip the bare bones of this model down. I don't want to have a large file size. I don't need to have a large file size. I want to have my model that I'm currently working in referencing a small, lighter weight model in terms of using it and leveraging it there. I would go in here and just immediately I would change my settings, go into types. I'm going to go to views. I'm going to go and select some of the floor plans that I need. I don't need any of these copies. Let's say if I was doing a general cleanup, we're going back to workflow number 1. I wouldn't want these anyways. I would come in here to delete these. But let's just say if we're actually in here and we're doing it for coordination, I would want maybe a basement plan. And this is coming from a more of a structural background, and I'm receiving an architectural model, maybe some roof framing plans, just one. I don't need any of these other ones. Sorry, I'm unchecking it backwards. And that's all I need. I don't need any of their schedules. I don't need any of their view templates. I don't need any of their filters, maybe a couple of view templates. No, we'll just go with rid and get rid of them all. I'm going to take out all of their sheets. I don't need any of their sheets, any of their links, unless it's maybe referencing something. It's referencing my structural model. I don't need that. And images, of course, I'm going to select all of them. A quick select over here, right here on the right-hand side. And I'm just going to delete all of these. And again, if I'm receiving their coordination model on a daily basis, I can save this selection and then load it back in so I don't have to rerun this. I'm going to remove all of these. It's removing 216 views, 57 view templates, 2 filters, 31 sheets, links, and 15 images as well. And let's take this time to talk about how this is actually leveraging in terms of proprietary content, right? If I don't want them to have any of my details, I took time to create all of my details and I don't want any outside of my proprietary content leaving. You can come in here and immediately delete anything you need before sending it out. And it deleted everything. I already did this earlier, so I'm not going to save it out, but I am going to show you the file size difference. So this is the one I opened up earlier. This is the one we are working on. And as you can tell, this is in kilobytes, and we talked about the conversion, right? So we're looking at about 256 megabytes. That's a very large model. Fortunately enough, this was an actual CDE phase, so that's okay for model health. But now here we have our linked one. This is 32 megabytes. That's a huge drastic change. I usually see around 75% of reduction in terms of actually what our final cleaning up is doing in terms of stripping it down to the bare bones just for in terms of coordination and linking it into our models, or even sending it out, right? Why does anyone else need to have a large model and take more time to download, link in, rendering, moving around, and just in terms of everything in terms of file health and actual management, right? So we want to do a deep clean, and then you can also purge everything out as well. So within here, you can just quickly select the purge button. It's the same purge button you have natively in Revit, but it keeps you back into one interface, right? At the project cleaner, you're doing it from one interface. You can check all from here. And of course, I like to usually do this a couple times, but for right now, we'll just do the one. And we're going to show you guys the file save as. Hopefully it hits the same number. And number 2, we're a little bit over, might not have deleted some views, but again, that 75% reduction we're seeing is huge. So that's workflow number 2. We went over workflow number 1, going in and cleaning up your project in general as a whole, deleting views, unnecessary renderings, unnecessary images, and taking care of all of that. And right now, I'm going to take the time and answer any questions. Does anyone have any questions? You guys are all muted upon entry. All right, again, this is a free tool from CTC. You can go to CTC website and get a 14-day free trial to gain access to the paid tools. Right now, I just showed you the Project Cleaner, which is a free tool. Does anyone have any questions? Probably bring up my comment box here as well. Christopher, I've never used eTransmit, so I can't do a compare and contrast, but if you want to hop on and talk me through eTransit, and that's what you're talking about. eTransmit, sorry. Hey, Chris, I unmuted you.
Excellent, thank you.
Yeah, so how does eTransmit work in terms?
So it's a really simple process, and that's really what stood out to me, because this obviously goes quite deep. But the eTransmit add-in allows one to go through and select a model as well as all linked models, combine them into one central location. So if you have them, saved amongst, if you're a full service firm or something like that, so they're in different files or different folders in your folder structure, it brings them all together, gives them relative links, and pops them all in the same location. You can also, at least in the latest version, run through like a purge, and you can select certain elements similar to what you were showing. Again, I don't think it goes as deep, but being able to like centralize all the files and include all links and all that kind of stuff is really helpful. And again, I see that it looks like this does pretty much the same stuff, but I was curious.
Yeah, and that's more of the Project Cleaner. We just deleted all of our links here. So hold on. Let me show you this in terms of another tool that CTC has. So in terms of actually checking links imports and where they're located at and how they're actually put into the model, you can also do that here with another tool from CTC in the same BIM manager suite, right? And this is called import and link manager. So from here, you can actually do multiple tasks. It's a little bit above and further than eTransmit is what you're talking about. And this lets you know where the link is, insertion method, what workset it's on. You can even change the workset it's located at, the hosted view, referencing sheets, number or sheet number it's on. You can even pin it from this location as well. So if you needed to pin the actual link or wherever it's referenced from, you can do that as well. You can do that for links, all imports, all Revit links. It breaks it down into multiple tabs here. CAD links, if you had CAD links. Again, this is another tool within the BIM Manager suite. And again, this wouldn't be for a day-to-day user. This would be for more of a BIM manager, right? We don't want somebody going in terms of Project Cleaner, deleting views. Someone that's actually in the BIM manager role that's going through knows in terms of what the process is going to be and implementing that. And that's same here for import and link manager as well in terms of changing what workset it's placed on, how it's pinned, reference type, right? You can reload and swap from here. You can swap and reload from the folder. You can find and replace as well. And then since I'm not going to give a very thorough explanation, all of CTC tools, when you open them up, have a video and it shoots you right to an actual website and a YouTube link of how they work.
Oh, great. Yeah, one of the things that we utilize eTransmit for is, again, when we're sending it out to outside consultants and coordinators and, the owner who requests it, and that, we need everyone to have access to it. But since it's part of the free portion of the BIM Manager suite, again, I don't think that's necessarily a stopgap for us utilizing the Project Cleaner.
Correct. This is a free tool. And if everybody in your firm, you're saying, hey, everyone needs this, you can even take it a step further if you wanted to. If you're like, hey, I actually don't want them to see anything but the Project Cleaner, within the suite settings here, you can go in and just deselect everything that you don't want them to see, and it just has a Project Cleaner. Now, this works for all the way. Once you download it, it's just one download, and it works for 2017, 2018, 2019, and 2020.
Excellent.
So it's one single download. You don't have to download it per version. So it works for the 4 latest versions of Revit. Any other questions? I have the comment box up here. You can comment. I can unmute you. It's a little bit difficult for you to unmute. If not, all I'm doing right now is answering questions, and then I'll complete the webinar after that.
So you had gone through, as you showed there, that we could kind of allow only this one tool to show up in the toolbar for our users. How do we, I guess, populate that across a company, like a deploy, just the one tool from the suite?
Oh, so in terms of deployment, how can you deploy it? That's a great question, and I don't know the answer to that, but I do know there's deployment in terms of packages that you can then do a script for it, I know.
Okay.
Because you can do back-end work in terms of, see how I have 2 different tabs here, right, for CTC content. These are different tools.
Oh.
So I can move what part of the ribbon it's actually on as well.
Okay.
So there's a lot of back-end movability with it. I would definitely take your email down. If you want to private message me, and then, or hold on, let's see. I'll just put in the chat my email, and you just shoot me an email.
Sounds good. Yeah, and we
I'll
already
forward.
own the manager suite and the project suite for that matter. So I can look at the documentation, I'm sure. I just haven't been able to yet, so I figured I'd ask.
Yeah. I personally don't know the answer to that in terms of deployment.
Okay.
But there might be something in there, and if you can't find it in there, feel free to shoot me an email.
Okay.
There's my email, and I'll definitely get back to you.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome, Chris.